Hey everybody, this is Raymond Camden, and I am here today to show you an example of something very cool that Pipedream recently launched, and that is the ability to sync your workflows with uh, GitHub. Now, this is something that's been asked for a long time. I'm really happy to see it, but there's three things I want to mention before going into it. So first off, the GitHub integration, it's not free. So you do have to be on a paid plan, but honestly, that feels okay to me. You know, if you are doing something at a level where you want the source control for your workflows, it kind of makes sense that you're beyond the hobbyist and just kicking the tires type level. Second thing, know that while this will sync with GitHub and you could clone your workflow locally, you can't run it on your machine. Not yet, anyway. I started playing with Pipedream maybe 2 years ago, fell in love with it, still love it. And I know even back then, I had wanted the ability to run things on my own machine. So it wouldn't surprise me if that gets added some point soon. But you can at least clone it locally and have a copy of your workflow on your machine. Lastly, keep in mind that the GitHub integration will be tied to a project. Now, I mentioned I love Pipedream. I also haven't used it for a couple months or so, so I missed the launch of projects. But a project lets you group workflows together, and to use the GitHub integration, it will be tied to a project. So you don't have a source control repository for one particular workflow, but all the workflows within one project. And again, that kind of makes sense. I like the fact that we have more organization now with our workflows, makes it kind of easier to find stuff. But just kind of keep that in mind if you're like me and maybe you haven't played with Pipedream for a little bit. So, with that, let me show you an example of what this looks like in action. I'm going to create a new project and we are going to call it GH Integration Test 2 because I am incredibly creative. And you'll see I do need to turn on the configure GitHub sync. And now it's going to ask me for my GitHub account, which I've already connected. It's going to give me a repository name, and I can tweak that if I want to, but I am okay keeping it like that. And you know what? I will not make it private. And when I share this video, I will share a link to the repository. All right, so we will create the project. La da 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 da. Do 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 do. All right. So there we have my project, and let's actually start getting into it. We'll make a new branch. We'll call it Ray. I'll just call it Dev. Hit create. There we go, and go into resources. And this is actually where I'm going to make a workflow. And I am still kind of new. Oh, I missed the big giant blue button right there. New workflow. So we will call this Get Depeche Mode Tracks. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. You see I have a bunch of options here, but I'm just going to take the defaults. All right. So I'm going to build a sample workflow that is going to be triggered by a HTTP request. It's going to use Spotify to get the top tracks for Depeche Mode. It's going to filter the result to be a bit smaller and then return it as JSON. So we will use new HTTP webhook request, and we will be doing a custom response because it's going to be JSON. And let's go ahead and filter out fav icon, save, and continue. All right, so going forward, everything I'm doing is going to be kind of generic work for building a workflow. So we'll go through this a bit quicker. Let's go ahead and go into Spotify. And there is a get top tracks for artists. Let's see, it's filter by artists. There we go, get an artist top tracks. Now, I already know the ID for Depeche Mode. I used the excellent Spotify Developer Console to get that. I'm just going to enter custom expression, just enter straight text like that. And then the other thing I need is the market, which will be US. All right, so let's go and test this and just make sure that it returns. Should be a lot of data. There we go. So the 10 tracks. So let's go ahead now and filter that result. And I'm going to do that by just doing some custom code. In this case, we'll do Node.js. I've already written that code, so I'm just going to copy and paste it in. And basically all I'm doing is, saying, yes, Spotify, you return a lot of data, but I'm okay with the name, duration, album, and a link to the URLs. So I think we can go ahead and test this and see what happens. And it's trying. It should be using the result from last time, I believe. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and rename this to filter results. I like to have good names for my Pipedream steps. So finally, what we'll do is return the result, and there should be, there we go, return an HTTP response. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste the code I already wrote. And all this is really doing is applying a application JSON to the result and returning what I had from the previous step. And we'll just call this return JSON. All right, so now let's test this. And I should see top tracks again, but I should see, make sure, oh, you know what? Because I renamed this after I ran it. So let's run this again. And now let's try getting the right test. I'm sure it's going to work just fine this time. There we go. And we'd see the body. It's an array of stuff. Cool. So all of that work was actually done in my dev branch. In theory, let's go ahead and go into a repository, see if it's already been pushed. There it is, GH integration test 2. And we could see nothing there yet, but I should be able to go ahead and save this. And what I'm going to do is exit development mode. That should push. Let's see. We'll go here, reload, see if it's pushed up yet. Like I said, this is still new. So let's switch back to dev, and let's go ahead and commit my changes. There we go. I love this view, everything that changed. It should be a lot because I built the whole thing. So now that should be pushed to GitHub, reload, and bam, look at that. So if I want to make this live, it's very difficult. I have to click merge to production. Again, I love it showing me what's going to change. And like I said, like it says, it may take a few minutes, but that actually went really darn fast. Let's go ahead and go in here and see if we can get our URL. And let's see, settings, nope, not there. Changelog, that's pretty cool. Resources, I just want to go in there and see. Let's go back here real quick and see why we can't see. Oh, hit edit. Go in, there we go. All right, so I'll copy that URL and we'll paste it in. And we should get a nice JSON response of the top tracks by Depeche Mode. Of course, enjoy the silences first. Let's go back to our repo and just kind of look and see what it looks like. You could see my workflow. It's a folder. We can go in there. We could see some metadata, workflow, and the state. We'll look at the YAML. and it's kind of pretty much what you would expect. Notice that it has information about the Spotify connection. What I'm interested in though is the code, and you could see it has a folder for each of the action states or the states that had custom code. So, for example, filter results, entry.js, you could see the code there. So that's great. Like if I break something, I'll get what you expect. I'd get code history, and I could see where that particular breaking change is. Well, for completeness sake, we'll look at return JSON, and it's exactly what I had in there. So yeah, that's it. You saw that I had to make a branch, work in the branch. I pushed it to production. I have the GitHub integration. It's all just kind of there automatic. You saw back over here on Pipedream, it did do a great job of showing you the changes as you worked with it. All in all, great feature. Very happy to see this in Pipedream.